last week. Great listen as always. I also wanted to touch on the point you made about marketing and selling out big events in the RL calendar to grow our sport. Do you think there's any mileage in potentially scrapping Magic Weekend and introducing an Origin-type series for Super League? This could potentially kill two birds with one stone in terms of people saying there are too many fixtures. It would get rid of a round of fixtures for 80% of the players who wouldn't be selected, allowing the rest of them, allowing a rest week in the middle of the season for them. It would also provide a massive platform for RFL to be able to market the game not only to existing fans but to new fans who may not necessarily have a team but that could get behind a Lancashire versus Yorkshire game and therefore introduce them to the sport. It could still be kept at a big stadium, and you would have to think that there will be enough excitement and prestige around the fixtures to really show our game in the best light. Apologies if this is a topic that comes up every year around Origin time, but as a new listener for this season, I'd be interested in your opinion on the subject. Cheers, boys. Keep up the good work.
Right. Well, yeah, it is Origin time, isn't it? And it is about this time of year that I normally get dead giddy about bringing back Yorkshire versus Lancashire. But I have to say that I think my position has changed ever so slightly, Mark, on the whole British or on the Origin concept, because I watched Origin 1 this week, and I know that you'll touch on that in some of the results later on, but I was far from enamoured by the spectacle that was put before me, given the hype and kind of the bluster that goes with Origin. It seems to be becoming more and more a very attritional, defence-orientated, don't make mistakes sort of game, and it's not as exciting as you would hope it would be. And I'd almost got to the point by the end of it where I thought, well, why the fuck would we want a Yorkshire-Lancashire series if that's what we're going to get? But I don't think that that's what we would get now that I've had a chance to kind of really give it some thought. I do think that it could be a really good opportunity for us to replace Magic and get rid of that extra fixture that the league is obliged to fulfil, so rest certain players up, but then have that mid-season spectacle that allows the England coaching staff and the people involved with England RL to take a good look at the guys that, or a big portion of the guys that would be involved in representative football come the end of every year. I don't know where you stand on it these days, but I've kind of half come full circle on it, and I still think it would be a good idea, and I think I would favour it over a Magic Weekend type affair, to be honest. But the other side of that coin is that then you strip, does it make it more parochial? Does it make it more of a closed shop to certain people? What do you think?
Well, I certainly wouldn't be getting rid of Magic Weekend and replacing it with something like this. I think, like you were saying, this narrows down the margins of the sport to its traditional heartlands. Magic Weekend's kind of about pushing those heartlands a little bit wider. So on that basis, no. And also, you talk about these players that are going to get a rest, but is it really a big issue if some player at Wakefield who is a workaday forward, or some back at Salford that's never going to get in the Aussie side, or because he's playing over here, or what have you, throwing them out as examples, or some kid from the youth setup at one of the other clubs? Does it matter if they play an extra couple of games? They're not the players that at the end of the season are going to be on international duty for England that we need to win series with. They're not the players that need to be rested. The players that need to be rested are the ones that are going to go through this hard slog of extra games. And so I sort of think from that standpoint, it's giving our best players 2 more games, if anything, which probably isn't ideal. I don't know. It'd be lovely to think it could be back in the calendar and could sell out, but when we saw it last put in place, 14 years ago now, was 13 years ago, something like that, it didn't sell out. It wasn't a big spectacle, and it didn't bring anything more to the table. Whilst I would love it to do all those things that Origin does, outside of obviously the snooze fest that Origin matches seem to have become in the last 2 years. But, if it could do all those other things, great, get it in the calendar. But I just don't see it at the moment, unfortunately, working out.
Yeah, I also happen to say, I think Magic Weekend is probably too much of a cash cow compared to reviving our concept and really trying to push it. And then, are you going to get an aggregate attendance like the aggregated attendance that Magic Weekend for an Origin series? Probably not. I think it makes more business sense for the NFL to carry on and have a Magic weekend, isn't it?
Yeah. So on the theme of roses, though, Colin Render sent in a question and he said, "Lots of talk about War of the Roses State of Origin. Yes, there has, everyone. Every opinion piece on these multiple websites that are around these days have had something on there about this." But he said, "What would be the strongest 17 for each side?" Tom, I think what we'll do is take this one away and have a think about it for next week, because
Absolutely.
we might have a few changes from what we said the size would have been this time last year, when undoubtedly the same topic was discussed.
Yeah. Okay, well, how do you want to do it? Do you want to do a Lancashire team and I'll do a Yorkshire team, or should we both do a team each? Or 2 teams each?
I think we'll do it. We'll do a Lancashire, and I'll do a Lancashire, you do a Yorkshire, and then get our listeners to do the same. So if you're a White Rose, you give us your Yorkshire team. If you're a Red Rose, give us your Lancashire team, and we'll see how we all stack up.
Perfect. All right. Well, I look forward to next week and talking to you about a lot of Hull FC players, Mark.
Well, you've got to remember, some of them might not necessarily be eligible for Yorkshire.
I'm going to have to do a bit of Wikipedia, but no, that's a good one to put in for next week. That deserves decent sound quality, or at least sounds better sound quality.
Yeah, so rounding off this week's challenge and feedback then, we've got Sean Orton. He got in touch, he said, I'm sure many players have release clauses in their contracts in case of relegation, but what about Leeds players? Before this season, would anyone have had the foresight to put that in their contract?
Well, from having been relegated, my understanding is that it's fairly standard boilerplate that once, if a player is relegated from the Super League, that the contracts are all voided anyway.
I've heard that too, that it's almost built into a Super League player's contract, like template.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from top to bottom, I think that's just kind of standard issue stuff. I don't think there's any great discussion about it, really, unless a player particularly wanted to have the clause removed. I think most agents will negotiate that clause in as a matter of course. I think most clubs will acquiesce to that anyway. I don't think it's a deal breaker in terms of a lot of contract negotiations.
No, okay. And obviously, as I'll discuss in the news coming up next, that it doesn't necessarily have to have a release clause in your contract to get out of it early. So we'll move on to the news with that, Thomas. News, and we'll let Tom dip out of this section. We will start with a story we've talked about quite a lot on the Super League pod. It relates to Adam Walker, and this week news came out that the child sex charges against the Hull KR prop have been dismissed in court. Walker had been charged with 2 counts of attempting to engage in sexual activity with a child, and according to the BBC, following a hearing at the Leeds Crown Court, the charges were dropped by Judge Geoffrey Marson QC. So obviously a relief for the Hull forward there in clearing his name, and he can move forward with his career. So that's good news all round. Last year's Man of Steel Zach Hardacre has been placed on the transfer list by the Leeds Rhinos. The Yorkshire club have put a £300,000 valuation on Hardacre, a key member of the Rhinos' treble-winning 2015 season when he won the Man of Steel, of course. The club have agreed to allow the 24-year-old to leave after he revealed he wanted to play in Australia's NRL, with Canberra believed to be among the favourites to sign him. A couple of other clubs are in the running, though. I explained my desire to leave and test myself in the NRL to Gary Hetherington several weeks ago, and I'm pleased that the club is prepared to release me, Hardacre said in a statement on the website. I have had 5 great years here and have had so many wonderful times. I will continue to help the team whilst I'm here, but I'm also excited with what the future may hold for me. Obviously, this is probably the biggest story of the week, so we've got a few comments in from fans, mostly Leeds Rhinos fans, which is great because their view is the most important view on this, I suppose. And Cutthroat Jake says, I think that Zach is showing less faith in us than we showed in him during all of his problems. If this is the case, then I'd rather he wasn't selected again for the length of his contract, regardless of the results. Colin Render said, wish him well wherever he ends up. Disappointed he's leaving, and he's a great player. Even in Leeds' poor form, he's been good. Fatboy Rob, who is a Cass fan, said, Zach's going nowhere if Leeds are holding out for 300,000. He'll do well at Batley in the middle eighth, though. Then Rich Wilkinson said, he's been great for Leeds, and if he can find an NRL club, good luck to him. It's a short career and I will support him and wish him all the best. But here is the reality of the situation. His Man of Steel form may be good enough to get him a chance of a start, but he would need to be better than last year to hold down a regular spot, and he will need to keep getting better, like Hodgson, who had no fanfare or hype. Hardacre looks like he thinks he can go for big money. He is kidding himself if he thinks he can go to Oz and serve up the utter shite he has in 2016. If Zach doesn't bring his absolute best and more, he will be playing reserve grade with Joe Burgess and Dan Sargentson, who also needs to improve dramatically on arrival. So, a few different takes there. I think we'll open this one up for more of your views, really, on this. Where might Zach go? How might Zach do? Because I'm sure Tom will want to talk about this too next week. My take on it is £300,000 is a high asking price for a player who isn't in great form, but he's at an age where he can still improve and still has his best years ahead of him. And, you know, he could make a good go of it in the NRL. We will see. Defensively, certainly he's up there, so he matches the likes of someone like a Josh Dugan defensively from fullback, I would suggest. With his sort of size and his shape and his familiarity tackling, having played in the centres for a while. In attack, this year he's trying to do too much, and I'm pretty sure he's lost the plot a little bit there, trying to get involved in the kicking game and things like that for Leeds. So it will be interesting to see exactly how he's trained over there if he does get his dream deal. Okay, someone who's got a big deal, Hull FC have signed Salford centre Josh Griffin on a 3-year deal starting from next season. Griffin said he has knocked back interest from NRL and other Super League clubs to join the Black and Whites. His quote was, "They are a club that match my ambition. I want to play in big games in front of big crowds and hopefully push for an international spot, and I believe Hull is the best place for me to do that." Obviously, some Salford fans will be disappointed about this, and I spoke to Owen Hughes before the Salford game. Actually, he echoed those sorts of feelings. It's a shame that he's leaving. He's always a player that's 100% committed when he's on the field. So big boots to fill for Salford there, but decent signing for Hull FC. You'd have to expect that's in anticipation of Tumavave moving into the halves on a more full-time basis. Luke Gale has signed a new 5-year contract with Castleford Tigers. The 27-year-old scrum half, who has joined from Bradford Bulls in 2014, was under contract already till 2017, but has been linked with a move away from the jungle. "It's great to be able to put the rumours to bed," said Gale. "I did have interest from elsewhere, but I always wanted to stay here, and I'd like to see out the rest of my career here at Castleford Tigers. It's certainly been a good fit for the player and the club so far in his 1.5 seasons, so Cas fans will hope that continues." Championship side Lee Centurions have signed St Helens halfback Travis Burns on loan for the rest of the season. The 32-year-old Australian standoff moves to Saints in 2014 from Hull KR for £60,000, but struggled for game time this year, making 5 outings. Obviously, there's rumours abound about why that is, but there's clearly been some sort of disconnect between him and the coaching staff there at St Helens. But Neil Dukes, the coach at Lee, is quite excited. He said, "Travis will add huge experience to our squad. He will no doubt enhance the culture and standards off the field just as much as on it." He can be a hothead who's joined a hothead club, I would say, but he certainly started well, and Lee have put together quite a big squad for the middle eights. Adding to that also is Warrington prop Ben Evans. He's joined on loan, just for 1 month though. With immediate effect. That's probably to cover a couple of the suspensions they've suffered from other hot-headed players that they have running around that squad. So it'll be interesting to see just how Burns and Evans fit in, but early signs are good. Bradford have confirmed the capture of Parramatta fullback Kieran Moss on a 1.5-year deal. The 22-year-old speedster has signed a deal until the end of 2017, joins up with his former coach Rowan Smith, who had him as a junior at Penrith. Other Bradford news, James Clare signed an extension till 2018 and Amari Caro till 2017, so looks like their backs are getting shored up for the short to medium term future there, so good stuff for Bradford. Off the field, William Bartho has extended his deal with the London Broncos, which will see him stay at the club until the end of 2018. The 26-year-old French international joined the Broncos from the Catalan Dragons in 2015 and has since gone on to make 26 appearances for the London club. And that's a a good deal for player and club, obviously, and stepping down from that bunch of Championship news.